Hello, Nebraska, and welcome to this week's edition of the Retirement Compass, the show dedicated to helping you successfully navigate to and through your retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio, we have two members from Stonebridge Wealth Systems based right here in Nebraska, Tim Kulhanek, who is a co-founder, and Jeremy Gove, partner. Tim, Jeremy, it's great to be with you. I'm excited to have another week in the studio. Everything going well for you?
Yeah,
going really good.
Yeah,
good.
I'm excited for the show.
Well, I know you've gotten a lot of feedback. A lot of folks are calling in or they're coming to your workshops. They're hearing you on the radio. It's just all working together. And I love that you're getting to connect with more folks through these mediums.
Yeah.
It's so important.
It's great.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if you have ever wondered if you should refinance your finances or refinance your retirement, or if you wonder what that even means and if it could be a good thing for you, you are not going to want to miss today's show. We're going to be talking about how, given what's happening in today's economic climate, there's some unique opportunities that you want to take advantage of right now, given where interest rates are in particular. So let's first start off our conversation today when we're talking about this concept of refinance your finances, specifically refinancing your retirement. What do we actually mean?
You know, when we're talking about refinancing, obviously we're talking about interest rates. And so the first quote that comes to mind when we're talking about interest rates is an Albert Einstein quote. So maybe you guys have heard this before, but he's talking about compound interest.
The eighth wonder of the
Eighth
world.
wonder of the
right?
world, right, is what he called it. And he said, those who understand it get it, those who don't, pay it. And so I sat down with clients, we'll call him Frank Johnson, because he actually did a local news story with me about interest rates about, 6-8 months ago with the local news station here in town. And his name's Mark, but the person that wrote the script had him named Frank Johnson. So Frank Johnson came in and he took out some CDs because, hey, dang it, we've got some good CD rates now, and we haven't had these for 30, 40 years. And then he said, listen, Tim, my client Mark, he said, listen, I need you to talk to my kids, okay? He's got quadruplets, so God bless him, you know. And they're at that age, they're about 21, 22 years old. I want them to understand the importance of starting early, okay? Because the number one thing that people say when they come in, if you ask them, what would you do differently? If you could do it over again, I would have started saving earlier.
Yes, I don't know a person who has regretted or not wished they had started.
Yep,
sooner,
exactly.
Right?
So we start with talking about interest rates and compound interest and how important that is. Now, how important are interest rates? Well, just look around you. It impacts your job, believe it or not. So the majority of businesses in this country are small businesses, and a lot of small businesses have to borrow money in order to provide for things like capital to be able to buy inventory, hire employees, research and development. And the reality is it's very expensive. And it gets a lot more expensive when interest rates are 7, 8, 9% versus when they were 1, 2, 3%. So it affects your employment status. It affects your savings. What happened last year? In March of 2023, March 9th, I think it was, the second largest bank collapse in United States American history was a Silicon Valley Bank went out of business, followed by the Signature Bank. There's actually 5 significant bank failures, 3 kind of major ones, First Republic being the third, and then there were 2 a little bit smaller, more regional banks that also went out of business in 2023. So we've seen massive changes in the landscape. So what we have to do is we have to start shifting our thinking. We can't be using 20th century solutions to 21st century problems, okay? So that's what we're gonna talk about on the show today is what are these 21st century solutions so we can refinance to get up with the times.
Well, I think it's really interesting, this term refinance, I know for most folks conjures up certain things. Typically when people think about refinancing something, you wanna do that when interest rates are low. That's the time where you ideally wanna refinance your home, refinance an auto loan, something of that nature. But recently in our economic climate, interest rates have been a lot higher. So why would someone want to actually consider refinancing their retirement right now in this higher interest rate environment?
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, Kristen, we're talking about interest rates. And so, as you said, a lot of people think, when we think of refinancing, it's our mortgages, it's maybe car loans, things like that. But, or maybe if you have high credit card balance that's, at a higher interest rate, maybe it's good to shuffle that down to a different one.
Right.
But there's also other things that are affected by interest rates, like CDs. Bonds have a pretty significant impact, or significantly impacted by interest rates. And so when you think about, just for the audience sake, I'll talk a little bit about bonds and how that works. So if you want to think of a teeter-totter, and if you think of when interest rates are really high, bond prices go down, right? So they work inversely of each other. And so where have interest rates been historically? For Well, I mean, I guess in recent history, like the last 10 or 20 years, they've been historically low, right?
Right,
So that would mean our bond prices have been really high. And this is a great conversation about why you need to have an advisor that has a plan in place, and not only a plan, but an adaptable plan. Because what happened in 2022 or the end of 2021, first part of 2022, what happened? They started talking about raising interest rates, right? The Fed said, we're going to start raising interest rates. Well, so if for all of our clients, we actually decided, okay, if they're going to start raising interest rates, we probably don't want to own bonds anymore. So we need to shift out of that.
Right, rebalance the portfolio, right? Yeah.
In essence, refinance the portfolio at that time. And so it's really important to understand, seasons. In Nebraska, we have 4 seasons. I have never seen a farmer go out and plant a field in December. It's not going to be very successful, right? And so it's the same thing with knowing where you're at in the markets, knowing where you're at, with things that are going on around you. And so with the interest rates being high right now, there's a lot of people that have fixed annuities, or they might have what we call indexed annuities. So they have a fixed rate of return in that annuity, and it might be 1%. It might be set at 1% right now. And you could take that money and put it in a new annuity with these new interest rates and maybe get 5%. So, I mean, I'm not a math genius, but 5% is much better than 1%, right?
Right, yeah.
So when we talk about refinancing our retirement, that's what we're talking about.
Well, and it's, you mentioned what happened in 2022 when interest rates started rising. That was such a bad year for folks who thought that having a 60-40 traditional portfolio, stocks, bonds, I'm going to be fine, right?
Yep.
But that was a year where we saw both go down at the same time. And as a result, a lot of folks did flock to the fixed indexed annuity market. I mean, in 2023 alone, over $385 billion ended up going into fixed annuities for that very reason. So it's interesting that a lot of folks were refinancing, right, as a result of what was happening.
Yeah, Jeremy just made the kind of jokingly comment that he's not a math genius. I think he's pretty good at math. But I actually have a client who is a retired math professor, so he's pretty darn close to being a math genius. And something he did, he had good foresight here, he did this back in like 2019, is he switched a substantial portion of his bond portfolio into those indexed annuities you talked about. And if you look at the comparison of how those index annuities have done compared to bonds, it's substantial. I actually looked up some numbers. And for bonds, we use indexes to try to, for any market kind of investment strategy, you have to have something to compare it to. We call it a benchmark. So sometimes when people think of stocks, they think of the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones Industrial Average. But for bonds, it's called the Barclays Aggregate Bond Index. And it's just kind of an average for all different types of U.S. bonds. And from 2010 to 2016, it averaged 4.61%. Not too bad. From 2016 through roughly the last couple months, it's averaged 2.68%. Okay, that includes its worst year in history in 2022. We were talking about here recently, lost almost 14%. So it's a critical time to really take a look at what you're doing, and maybe we could refinance our retirement. And it doesn't have to be, it could be annuities, it could be CDs. I had somebody in just the other day whose CDs are paying less than 1%. And this, we're talking about $100,000. It's not just like, oh, this is a savings account that I'm not that worried about. $100,000, if you could have been making 5% versus the roughly 0.5%, $4,500 more in interest in your pocket, but you didn't get it. Why? Because again, if you're not working with the right team of professionals, the bank's probably not going to call you up and say, hey, have you thought about hiring us to pay you more? Right? That's just not how it works. So here's what I tell the folks at home. When it comes to refinancing your retirement and some of these strategies, maybe you have some of these strategies, like the indexed annuity, and you've had it for years. You're like, Tim, I already got that covered. Now is a perfect time to review that. The income payments on those things, compared to where they were 5 years ago, 3 years ago to today, they're much higher. So there's a chance that you could actually get a pay raise just by refinancing your retirement of guaranteed income. The potential growth on those, I often say that an index annuity is kind of like an analogy to rock climbing. If you think about rock climbing, there's 2 different ways to do it. You can free climb, where it's just some fancy shoes, you chalk up your hands, take a little fanny pack with chalk, and you can shoot up that sheer rock face, right? I think Jeff's father-in-law actually climbed the Royal Gorge back in the day. So,
yeah, Jeff, one of your teammates.
Yeah,
right?
one of our
Stonebridge.
teammates, so kind of crazy. But and at one point he said he actually jumped from one handhold to another.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Because what would have happened if that handhold broke loose? Well, Jeff, maybe different father-in-law, right? I don't know. The point is, there's a lot of risk with that. You could get up fast, but the bottom doesn't look so good. You can get to the bottom really fast. With an indexed annuity, it's more like an assisted climb, where you gear up, you've got a harness, you've got ropes, you've got carabiners, you've got batons and a hammer, and every so often, you clip in, right? So that way, if something does happen, something breaks loose, you only fall down to that last place that you clipped in. You don't have to go free climbing in the stock market on Wall Street with all of your money. And the best news is today, the rates that you can get on those assisted climb types of strategies are the highest we've seen in 30, 40 years, which would be a reason you'd want to give us a call today.
Absolutely. Gosh, there's so much more to get into. I'm excited to continue this conversation with you, Tim and Jeremy. Thank you. To our viewers at home, what the team of Stonebridge Wealth Systems are offering you today is the opportunity for you to claim your complimentary written financial plan. Now, this is for no cost, no charge, no obligation. It's simply an invitation to have a conversation to see how they can help you, where might be some areas where you can refinance your retirement. So to claim yours, it's really easy. All you need to do is pick up the phone and call that number that you see on the bottom of your screen, 866-256-7778. Or if you'd prefer not to talk to someone right now, but you do have your smartphone handy, if you simply pull it out, open up that camera app, you can point, click, and scan that QR code down in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Stonebridge Wealth Systems will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary meeting that way as well. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to be talking about what are some of the impacts of our current interest rate environment on your retirement, and specifically why not making some changes could have a negative impact on your financial future. So don't want to miss it. Stay with us.
Our team is very unique, so we all have different gifts. You know, when you put it all together, it fits well.
Jeremy is definitely our most seasoned and fastest growing advisor we have. He's discerning. So he understands the way we want to do things at Stonebridge, to focus on the client and solving their problems. And that's really what he's passionate about.
I know Tim spends a lot of time making sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed for his clients. And he's not just satisfied knowing the 30,000 foot view, he wants to get down in the weeds and know exactly how it works.
The things that you buy, the stocks, the bonds, the mutual funds, that really isn't that important to the client. What's important to the client is, what does this mean for me? And at the end of the day, what it means is they can sit back and listen to the music. You know that you've got a team, not just one person, but an entire team behind you that's taking care of those things, so you can focus on what's important.
Welcome back, Nebraska. You're watching the
Retirement Compass, brought to you by the team of Stonebridge Wealth Systems. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with both Tim Kulhanek and Jeremy Gove. And today we are talking about refinancing your finances, refinancing your retirement, and why now is an optimal time to take advantage of these opportunities that are existing because of our higher interest rate environment. So first, I want to ask, because I think it's important always to have a balanced discussion on this show of the positives and the negatives of things. So first up, let's talk about some of the problems that our current higher interest rate environment are having on folks' finances.
Yeah, so I mean, high interest rates have some negative impacts, and we talked about the 60-40 portfolio. You mentioned that. Why is the 60-40 portfolio such an important tool that a lot of advisors use when they're, or people that are saving for retirement use?
In the accumulation phase of their lives, right?
Yeah, in the accumulation phase of life. They do that because they want to have, uncorrelated investments. So you have stocks and you have bonds. The theory is, if the stocks are going up, bonds may go down.
Right.
Or vice versa.
It's growth and conservative, right? That's kind of what you're trying, growth and safety together.
Right. And so in 2022, that was
work.
shown to be a disaster.
Right.
And so that's why, again, I think it's really important to know where you're at. But when you have interest rates above 5%, that starts to affect high growth stocks. And that affects high growth stocks more than value stocks or other stocks, simply because they're in the growth phase, right? So they're buying things like, they're hiring new employees, they're buying infrastructure, they're doing all this stuff to grow, right? They're building, and they're probably out over their skis a little bit because they're building more than what they actually need today, versus a value stock that, they just, they're kind of chugging along, so that they're not borrowing as much money right now. So that's one impact that high interest rates have, is on, growth stocks. in the 60-40 portfolio, 40% of that is bonds. When interest rates go up, if you didn't just buy your bonds, you own your bonds when interest rates were low,
That
you're taking a
teeter-totter
big
comes
hit
back
right
into
there.
play,
And,
right.
and we saw that.
Yeah.
And so that's why, that's where the negative impacts come in with higher
Right.
interest rates.
Okay, so then we also need to talk about the positives because we are talking about how folks can take advantage of these higher interest rates. So, Tim, what are some of the positives that higher interest rates can have on one's retirement?
Yeah, I think we hit on some of them, and I think I'd break it down to it really depends on if you're a saver, and you've got cash available to benefit from what we talked about with Albert Einstein and the eighth wonder of the world, or if you're in debt, and so that's why it's so critical to have a plan to make sure that you get out of debt, because like Jeremy said, he was talking about a lot of the financial markets type of impact, but we'd also have to talk about the consumer, right? So debt's a huge problem in this country. The good news is I think 88% of mortgagees refinance their retirement on the savings side, or I should say the debt side, back when interest rates were super low. So 88% of mortgagees have a rate less than 6%. So not a lot of people are paying at these like 6+ rates. That's good news, right? So that's a positive. The bad news is we saw a 13-year high with corporate bankruptcies in 2023, okay? So what people need to do is they need to get debt paid off, right? And then they need to start taking advantage of, hey, I could put my money, there's over $6 trillion right now in US dollar-denominated money market funds. I've never seen it that high. Why is it $6 trillion? Because you can get 5.25% interest on a money market account. It's completely liquid. For the most part, it's secure, it's safe. We put it in the safe bucket. Sometimes we say safety, income, and growth are our 3 buckets. This would be in the safe bucket. And it also has, what we wrap that around those 3 buckets is the liquidity
Meaning you can
factor.
access it right away.
It's
right.
accessible.
Yep.
So we've got a kind of a paradigm shift where we've got accessible dollars that earn good yields, good interest. And if we've done a good job of paying off our debt, our money is simply going to work more for us. Now, if you haven't paid off your debt, you just got to put a plan together. Part of what we do, a lot of people think, oh, well, these guys work with retirees, and they probably don't work with people who still have mortgages or debt. We do. The difference between, I think some practices and ours is we just make sure that we put a strategy together to make sure that we pay that off. So I'll give you a quick example. Had a couple in just the other day. This is a younger couple. Most of our clients are retirees. This is a younger couple. And they're trying to get 2 different debts paid off. One is their house. The other one is the truck. And they're putting money on both of them. I said, hey guys, I think we need to take a step back. The truck's a 7% plus interest rate. Let's pay that off. Let's focus on that. Pay the minimum on the house. Let's put everything, kind of that debt snowball type of approach on the truck. Well, how are we going to come up with some of this money? Well, okay, let's just think about this. You just got $10,000 back from your tax return between federal and state. We're going to put all that on the truck, okay? You've got an I-bond that when inflation was really high, it was paying 7, 8, 9%. That's now paying 3.5%. We're going to cash that out, and we're going to put that on the truck. So there's $20,000. We got $17,000 left. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to adjust your withholding on your taxes, because guess what you're doing? You're getting, yes, it's nice to get $10,000 back from the government. That feels good, but it's not a wise thing to do.
No, because you are giving an interest-free loan to the government with your money. A lot of folks don't realize
You could have
that.
been making $10,000 throughout the year on that, or excuse me, you could have been making 7% on that $10,000 throughout the year by paying it towards that loan.
Right.
So we made those 3 adjustments. We're going to save them over $10,000 in interest in some of these strategies. So, if you're sitting out there and you're thinking, well, maybe I don't have enough. Don't think that way. Everybody, whatever you have, that's what's important to you. We want to create an environment where you're going to be able to enjoy the best retirement than you possibly can, okay? And so for some people, that's going to be more extravagant things and travel and cruises and international flights and all of that, and that's great. We're going to create an environment where you get to enjoy that. I oftentimes use the analogy that what retirement should look like, it should look similar to planning a trip, but hiring an expert to plan that trip for you, like a travel agent. So the example of when my wife and I took a trip overseas, we didn't know what we wanted to do, where we wanted to go, where we were going to stay. We met with a flight planner, a trip planner, and that travel agent sat down with us, asked us what we wanted to do, what was most important to us, and a few weeks later when we sat down with her, she pushed across the table a binder, and it had a list of all our itinerary, where we're flying out of, when our flights were, when to be there, what to bring. Remember your passport. By the way, remember your passport. Don't put it in the back of the seat in the plane in front of you, because when you get overseas, they're going to boot you out if you don't have your passport. Everything was planned out for us, so we just got to enjoy the time while we were there. You get one shot at retirement, you should be able to sit back, relax, and enjoy it. We're going to push that binder across the table and show you the outline, the itinerary of what your retirement is going to look like. Give us a call at the number below, and we'll get started today.
Thank you for sharing that analogy, Tim and Jeremy. I mean, that's such a powerful reality, because I think some folks, we know this, spend more time planning their next vacation than they do your retirement, which one could argue is going to be the longest vacation of your life. And we want you to be able to get this right. So again, to claim your complimentary written financial plan, if you want the peace of mind and security that can come from having a plan mapped out for you, we encourage you to pick up the phone and call 866-256-7778. Or again, you're also welcome to scan that QR code, and that will get you connected as well. More on the Retirement Compass right after this.
Imagine not having to face your retirement journey with the same old corporate solutions as everyone else. In these economic times, you deserve a fresh perspective that includes a personalized income plan and a tax map from an independent fiduciary advisor whose focus is on you. Call the number you see here to schedule your complimentary review.
Welcome back to the Retirement Compass. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Tim Kulhanek and Jeremy Gove, where today we have been talking all about refinancing your retirement. And I really appreciate that you all have been just sharing with folks, understanding where we are in this current economic climate, what are some of the disadvantages, but to this whole concept of refinancing, what are a lot of the advantages that exist for folks to refinance your finances, refinance your retirement? What is at stake for someone not to take a look at their situation and take advantage of some of these opportunities right now?
Yeah, I think what we talked about earlier, I mean, look at the cost of waiting. You know, sometimes we talk about if you delay in planning, then you have to just rush, and usually when you rush, things don't work out very well. So let's say that, so I have to laugh because the Kulhaneks, like, we literally have a thing called Kulhanek time, which means you show up 20 to 30 minutes late. Like, family Christmas, they'd be finishing dessert when my mom walked in with like her salad. Like, oh, we're here. You know, like, okay, Mom, they already had dessert. They're not looking for salad right now. But if you're not like us and you're planning ahead, let's say you're going to a wedding and you can't be late because anymore weddings last like 5 minutes. You're gonna miss it. So you got 60 miles to go, okay? It's highway the whole way, 60 miles an hour, okay? When do you need to leave? How much in advance do you need to leave to get there right on time? Hour ahead of time.
Yes.
60 minutes, okay? What if you delay 20 minutes and you only got 40 minutes to be there? How fast do you have to drive, still going 60 miles, in order to get there right on time?
Too fast.
90, close, 90 miles an hour. So what's the point? Okay, so driving 90 miles an hour, probably I don't think we would consider that a safe thing to do, all right? A lot more can happen.
Right.
You know, I might have got a speeding ticket one time on 183.
On Kulhanek time.
Yeah.
That does happen.
Right.
And I had to take a stop class, and they talk about how, you know, don't text and drive and look at your smartphone, because when you look down for 1 second, they talked about how far you actually travel and what can happen in like several football fields length just for like the blink of an eye. If you're going 90 miles an hour, a lot more can happen that can go wrong. Just the same thing goes with your finances. You know, if you're not taking advantage of refinancing your retirement or rates are high, then you're going to have to take risks, other types of risks, potentially undue risks that are going to put your retirement security and your savings in jeopardy, because if something goes wrong, usually it doesn't work out too well. It goes more wrong than if you were taking your time and being more proactive with your plan.
And really what we're talking about today at the end, like just if we had to summarize this entire conversation, this whole concept of refinancing your retirement is helping things be better for you, creating a better financial plan, a better financial future, because after all, better is just better, right?
That's right. That's right. Well, and to Tim's analogy, we were kind of doing some calculations earlier, and if you take $1 and you invest it for 50 years at 7%, that's about $30 roughly.
Okay.
And if you take that same dollar, but you're only earning 5% for 50 years, it's $11. So just that compounding effect can have a significant impact. And so if you think of like the CDs that, like Tim said, you're earning 1%, 1.5%, where you could be earning 5, that's not just 2% different, that's almost 5 times more. So it can have a significant impact in a short amount of time. You can get that 60 miles in 40 minutes, earning 5% instead of 1%. So, so it's really important. And so, going back to, the whole process that we take our clients through, it's really important that you have a plan, that you're working with somebody that understands your situation, understands where you're at in life, understands the amount of risks that you want to take and the types of investments that you can invest in, that you can take advantage of. And that's what we do at Stonebridge. So as we've been talking about, pick up the phone, give us a call, and sit down with one of our team.
Well, one last question I do want to ask as we wrap up today. I think that, I know you meet with hundreds of folks, and I'm sure some folks come in and they're on track. So if you see that there's nothing that can be refinanced, how is that conversation going to go? Are you just going to encourage people to keep doing what they're doing?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the bottom line is, if you're on track, you're on track. There's nothing to change.
Right.
And so that doesn't happen that often.
I was going to say, how often does it happen that you actually find things that you can help refinance?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time there's at least something that can be done, but let's just assume that there wasn't. The bottom line is, you're on track. I wouldn't change what you're doing. The thing that I usually do with somebody that's in that situation is we set up a time to check back in a year. Let's see, are we still on track in a year? And then we set that up. And I have a couple clients actually, that I call them clients, but they call me when they want to do a review, but I'm not really managing any of their money. The reason they want me to meet with them is just to make sure that they're still on track, because they know that we have the tools to figure it out.
Right.
And also, they want to have a relationship with me, so that when they get to the point where they don't want to do it anymore, they're tired of doing it themselves, they want to know that somebody understands their situation and can take over that process.
And what a beautiful gift of peace of mind can come with just being able to see it on paper,
Absolutely.
right? With that written financial plan.
Absolutely.
Well, Tim and Jeremy, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
And to our viewers at home, thank you so much for joining us. We want you to have a solid plan in place no matter what's happening in today's economic climate. So we encourage you to claim your complimentary written financial plan simply by calling 866-256-7778. Or again, you can scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. Thank you so much for joining us. We love you, Nebraska. We look forward to being back with you next week.